Well, welcome back. We now have Emma Brook here, who is standing for Stanley. She has been a member before, but you're returning now to stand again. And what skills do you believe that you can bring to the new Assembly, and what portfolios would you like to take up if you're elected?
Well, I bring myself. I've got absolutely no business interests in the Falklands. You know, my husband runs a very, very small fire extinguisher company, but it's just me. I think I've got a lot of skills with regards to how the civil service works. I've worked for the civil service for many, many years. Yeah, really, you're just getting me at the end of the day. And I'll just give my best to everybody. With regards to portfolio, I would really like to get my hands on the Public Works Department because it's such a diverse portfolio, and I really like the diversity that that would bring. And I think at this time they need to have a little bit of support because there's going to be a huge amount of infrastructure, and that's going to end up having quite a massive knock-on effect to the workforce within the Public Works Department.
Yeah. What are the main issues you think you're going to be addressed by the next Assembly?
Well, the port and spending in capital projects as a whole. We've got an infrastructure that is crumbling. You know, we've had how many power cuts just this week? You know, we've got aging generators. There are plans for additional wind farms, but we do need to be looking more into more renewable energies. But the power station, without power, we've got nothing. It's the most important, I believe.
When first elected, most members are fairly au fait with what the opinion of the electorate is. How would you keep in touch with this? I mean, Facebook has been used, but it's being used as a soapbox by some people, and it's not necessarily the proper opinion.
Facebook, I think, has a place because it does reach out to some younger people, and it's got a very high take-up within the islands. But you are right. It's an opportunity for people to get onto a particular topic which actually may have been misinterpreted or may just be their own personal vendetta and feelings about something, which is fine. Personally, I would like to meet people face to face. I would like to take telephone calls from people. I believe talking to people, you get to hear, and more importantly, you get to see people face to face. And very, very often, it's that body language. When somebody is talking to you and you can see that what they are saying is really affecting them, you can't get that over social media.
No. You've touched on it already, but a number of large but essential capital infrastructure projects are either underway or been proposed. How should we deal with the funding for these projects?
Well, it's not going to be easy. You know, we have a capital fund. I appreciate we have a lot of money in our reserves, and I think where possible we should not be dipping and certainly not be looking at getting loans. I seriously worry about that. The islands haven't been in debt since Governor Darcy declared that we weren't in debt in 1874. And I don't think now, given the fact that the world is coming out of COVID, there's likely to be a global recession. I don't necessarily believe that this is now the right time to be putting ourselves in debt. But we do need to be investing. We do need to be investing in ports. We do need to be investing, but I think we need to be very clever about how that money is spent and maybe look at a rolling programme over many years to be able to create the ports and the infrastructure that we would like to see in the islands. It's not going to happen overnight, but I don't think we should be putting all our eggs in one basket when it comes to over 100 million I've heard quoted for a port. And to be honest with you, nobody has actually said the exact costs because I don't think they know what they are yet.
One of the most common issues discussed by the electorate at the moment is salmon farming. And this could become quite a valuable industry to the Falklands, but it comes with dire warnings about pollution and all sorts of other problems. What's your stance on that?
I say no to inshore aquaculture. particularly salmon farming. There's a huge amount of scientific evidence of anoxic environments created. This would then end up having massive knock-on consequences for the inshore biology around those areas. And I think we're only just starting to understand what we've got out there. We haven't done very much work. The other thing which really concerns me is if they escape. If they escape, they are predators. And, you know, we could kiss goodbye to our Loligo fishery, which is one of our most important fisheries, not only for the income for the islands, but also for our wildlife. And that would just be too detrimental. I think the risks outweigh the benefits.
Communication and internet speeds are discussed considerably, and a lot of people are very dissatisfied with it. How can the Falklands actually obtain the sort of speeds and service that people expect around the world these days?
Well, at the moment, I think one of the main bottlenecks, if you like, is Goonhilly. It's something which I know a little bit about because we've been having problems where I work and being able to gain the internet speeds to be able to access online qualifications. I hope that we look again at the monopoly licence that is currently held by Shaw, because I think things like Starlink or any other provider that's out there needs to be seriously looked at, and I hope that they'll be able to provide the internet connectivity we all want to enjoy.
Climate change is a big issue at the moment, and we just can't ignore it whether we like to or not. What steps should the Falklands take to make the islands more carbon neutral, and giving renewable energy and developments around with storage and such like? Would you support the development of the new power station being based more on renewables?
Absolutely. I think where possible we should move over to renewable energy. I think Camp has moved over very successfully to renewable energies, and we see the benefits of that with 24-hour power in many of the settlements. And it'd be lovely to see the same in Stanley. But maybe also look at encouraging people to have solar panels for heating at home, which would also help to reduce the island's carbon footprint. I was very, very surprised to read the other day from the conservation document that they sent out that the Falklands is creating more carbon dioxide than Saudi Arabia per head of population.
Yes.
Per head of population, I hasten to add. We really need to be doing something to try and curb our carbon footprint.
You mentioned Falkland Conservation. They've actually produced a document, 2021 election, getting the green vote, laying out their ideas on a green election. Are you aware of the document, and would you wish to make the Falklands more active on climate change and green issues?
I think the Falklands, and I think everywhere globally, we should all be becoming more aware of climate change and green issues. I think single-use plastics have to be stopped. I don't see there is a need for them. Where possible, we should stop it. I would like to see a greater redevelopment of our natural habitats. In Camp now, when you look at the aerial photographs, there's a huge amount of erosion going on. No fault of the farmers, but I just believe that the islands are drying up, and as a result we're losing our topsoil. I think we have to be very careful about whether or not we should be burning Camp anymore, which is something which we always used to do. But with burning comes soil erosion and loss of natural habitats, and I'm quite worried about that.
There's been a lot of criticism recently about the level of pensions for the retired people. In view of the fact that during their working years, many of the people receiving old age pensions now weren't able to take out pension schemes, and if they were, the income from those schemes is absolutely derisory. How do we deal with this?
Well, I asked my mother what her pension was, and I believe it was £863 a month. I'm sure you'd be able to correct me if I'm right or wrong. Sorry, Richard, I'm not implying that you're...
It's not as much as that.
Is it not?
No.
Okay. Mother also gets a top-up from the NHS.
Yes.
And, but, you know, people of that particular age weren't able to make savings. They don't have very much money to fall back on. We've got the £1 a day scheme, which an awful lot of our older folks can't access. Why shouldn't they be given that money to use to to help top up pensions. The TRIP scheme, for example, a lot of our older folks can't access the TRIP scheme. Why shouldn't they be given that money to help top up, especially in a year where the pensions weren't increased? And we need to be looking after our old folks into old age.
It's been suggested in some circles that members spend too much time overseas and not enough on local issues. Do you have any comment? And if elected, would you be willing to travel?
I'd be willing to travel, but I don't think we need to go overseas as much as we've seen in the past. There are some areas, though, I think we should. One is the party conferences. I do think, as much as I don't like the C24, I do think the Falkland Islands has to have a presence at the United Nations for the C24. It's very important. And the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, we really need to make ourselves felt globally through that. It's a wonderful organisation. You get to meet some incredible people and you learn actually a lot from them because we have similar issues.
Yes. The COVID global pandemic has created a lot of problems within the last 18 months. Unfortunately, we've been sheltered from a lot of them. However, it has raised the issue of how vulnerable the Falklands are to the fact that because of our isolation, we rely all on a lot of imported goods, which if something goes wrong somewhere else, we could have a problem. Should that issue be addressed?
Well, I'd like to see allotments. A lot of people have asked for allotments, but again, we've got lots of gardens which are beautiful in Stanley and not being used.
Yes, right.
So if people do want to grow, I'm sure there'll be people out there willing to offer some garden space for them. I don't think it's necessarily realistic to see us become completely self-sufficient. We can't. We can't grow wheat, we can't grow sugar, and I'm afraid those are the two things in life that I cannot do without. It would be lovely to see a dairy back up and running. We used to have 3 dairies, but it's been proven to be a very, very difficult thing to get back up and working again.
Housing is a problem area. Can you see ways in which the lower paid can actually get on the housing ladder, particularly in view of the fact that plots are getting more expensive, and that's even before they start building their house?
Yes, I've heard of some of our youngsters who were outbid in the last plot allocations, whatever we want to call them. I was fortunate. I had an incredibly heavily subsidised plot for the East of Stanley, and I'd like to see something introduced like that again for our younger people so that they can get themselves on the housing ladder, but also to reduce rents so that people who want to save to buy their own house can, and maybe even look at rent to buy.
Emma, thank you very much. Your time is up.
Thank you very much.